Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Tomes and Tunes. I am your host, Arielle Silver. I am coming to you from my little she shed in my Los Angeles backyard. I am an East Coaster by birth, by upbringing. I moved out here to the West Coast a little while ago and have just been enjoying the sunshine. I gotta say, sorry about that, East Coasters. It's February. It is a beautiful day right here in Los Angeles. This show, we are in episode 86 now, and it has just been a delightful way to spend the last couple of years book talking and song swapping with songwriters from around the world. These last couple of weeks have been my very first band residency on the show, and it has been really fun to have the band I See Hawks in LA, a different member of the band. They're all songwriters, and it's been really awesome. I am excited to continue the conversation this week with Victoria Jacobs, who is also in the band I See Hawks in LA. And next week we're going to take a little break from the Hawks world, and then we'll be back for the last Hawk. I think that's the first week of March. So I hope that you've been enjoying the last couple episodes. If you are tuning in and watching live, please say hi in the chat. It's always fun to see where people are from. And if you are watching on the replay, say hi in the chat anyway, and we'll see where you are from. What else can I tell you about this show, Tomes and Tunes? I just love books. I'm a songwriter myself and love music. And when COVID hit in March of 2020 here in Los Angeles and everything shut down, all of the venues, I really missed bumping into other songwriters and just being able to be in conversation with people that are grappling with living a creative life, figuring out how to have a music career in mostly the independent world. It's a strange path. And then when the pandemic started, of course, everything everywhere got weird and difficult in many ways. And this show it's become, at first, in the first year, it really became sort of almost like a montage, collage, map, something like that, of how artists are navigating this time. And then, of course, the pandemic continued and we all have evolved along with it. And now it's just become this show. It feels like I don't know, almost like somehow we're mapping the world of what it looks like to be an independent artist, to be a songwriter in contemporary times. So, without further ado, I bring you Victoria Jacobs from I See Hawks in LA. Hi. Oh, tea time.
Hi.
Okay, toast.
How's it going?
Good. I'm so happy to have you here, and your background looks incredibly familiar. Last week we had the same background. Paul Locks was sitting right where you are. The camera was shifted just a little bit, but it's really great to have you on the show now.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah. I was surprised that Rob and Paul, neither of them, when I asked them if they knew what a group of hawks was called, both of them were like, "No, I never thought about it." And I didn't know what it was either, so I looked it up. It's a kettle of hawks, and here you are drinking tea. So
That's right.
appropriate there. Oh, I have a book to share, but I'm gonna have to wait till we get Paul, the last Paul, on the show in a couple of weeks because I forgot to bring it
And
into
that
the
will
shed.
be
So,
a very good one,
but it's
sure.
appropriate. It's appropriate for the Hawks. Anyway, Victoria,
Yeah.
you and I were talking before we went live a little bit about your career, but I have to say that when I was just reading your bio before you and I started talking, I had this feeling of just awe, really. Like, I mean, you've been playing music for a long time. You've been in a lot of different bands, and you have, I want to hear about some of your adventures. You've reached, I don't know, it seemed to me, reading your bio, and bios are always great, of course, but it seemed to me that you reached some really exciting stages in your career, which is always exciting to read in a bio, but particularly because you're a woman. And the history of music that you were traversing, it just felt to me like I want to put you up on my hero board.
Oh,
It's not easy to be a woman in the music industry at all, and you've had a long career in it. So can can you tell me a little bit about that? You were mentioning some of the bands before we hit live for the show. Will you go
well,
scroll back to that conversation and tell me a little about it?
yeah, I came out of the like I learned folk music when I was younger, playing guitar and stuff like that. But I had this neighbor who, was right next door, who played drums,
Hmm.
and he was like a very close friend of mine. And I would go in his basement, and he had the same set that Ringo had. He was a total Beatles fanatic, and he had the same drum set. And I would say, oh, I want to, I would jump up and down like while he was playing it and dance. And I would ask him, can I play? Can I play? He wouldn't let me get on his drum set, no matter what I did. I would say, please, how about today? Can I play your drum? No, you cannot play.
Do you know
So
why he said no?
I have no idea. But I was really, really young, and I wasn't gonna, if he said I can't play it, I'm not gonna play it.
Yeah, yeah.
I should have been more forceful, but I wasn't. But I heard him playing all the time, practicing, and my bedroom where it was, I could hear it. And so that was all like going into my head subconsciously, all that rhythm. And then from there, I started dance lessons, and I was really devoted to dance. I went to a studio really close to our house. It's kind of well known, called Gus Giordano's. And it really influenced me every day, And so I had a lot of rhythm in what I was doing before I got into drums.
And
But
you
I
had
was
an
still,
awareness of your limbs. That's something that drummers, it's like their right arm, their left foot,
yeah,
like everything is kind of going in different directions at the same
exactly.
time.
Yeah,
And as a dancer, it's sort of the same thing, right?
exactly. I was doing jazz dancing back then, and I was even doing a little bit of modern. I didn't do tap, because I did tap when I was really young.
Hmm.
So it wasn't like, who knows? I didn't. It wasn't really in style at that point.
Yeah.
Maybe I just didn't. I wanted to try something new.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was soaking up all that rhythm, and so when I got involved in a band for fun, with all my girlfriends,
Oh
I wanted to
man.
play
Wow.
guitar and sing.
Yeah.
I had my electric guitar. I was like,
Huh.
I kept going to the front. I want to sing.
How old
And
were you? How old were you when that first band started?
that was like, we were probably like 18, you know? And my friend Marla, we were like, I was thinking, oh, she would play the drums, and she couldn't keep a beat,
Mm.
at all. And so I'm like, oh, okay, I'll try. Like everybody tried. I'm
Hmm.
like, my turn, and I think we were playing at a boyfriend's house, and it just clicked. It was
Hmm.
one of those weird moments where I was like, oh,
Hmm.
okay, this is really fun. I really like this. And then from there, I was just like, went drummer crazy. I would
Hmm.
listen to all these different drummers, and I didn't take any lessons, but I listened and I listened, and I just kept trying to imitate what I heard. And then me and the bass player of the band would just practice all the time. I would drag her. I'm like, let's go practice. And we would spend hours just practicing beat rhythm, you know, and and that was how this
Huh.
first band that I was in, we created songs. It wasn't based around a song at all. It was based upon pure rhythm and bass.
Oh.
And so it was really fun. And we would write the songs ourselves. And at one point we're like, why do we even need a singer? You know, let's just be bass and drums. Let's be a two-piece. I think we
Yeah.
even played out like that, you know, at first. And we were very rhythmic, just kind of shouting things out and playing rhythm. And then
Wow.
it evolved from there. You know, that was Chicago. I was living in Chicago, and we actually rehearsed across from the Cubby Bear. We on top of the Cubby Bear, which is right across from Wrigley Field, so we could actually like watch baseball games and then rehearse. Yeah. And then that band, Joe Fernite, expanded in the scene. There was a singer and, you know, a guitar player. And we actually opened up for a lot of acts. We got pretty far in the Chicago scene in the 80s. We actually opened up from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, really famous people, you know, from England, you know, and it was a really fun career. But back then, it was super hard to be a woman playing music. And that's it. It really was.
Tell me about that. Why do you say that?
Oh my God. It was like we were laughed at a lot. Like I have a song, I think it's on something I sent you, called House of Green. And it's the song is so cool, I think. And I remember it was reviewed in some fanzine and they were like totally making fun of it. And it was because I was a woman. And you know, and it had nothing to do with what even they weren't even listening to what the song was about. Everything. And it was super hard to get any kind of credibility.
Like people just taking you guys seriously.
Exactly. It really was. And we had a hard time, but we got far for what we did. The mistake was that we never put anything out. We did recordings, but we just did like little underground cassettes and stuff. And that's been a big mistake.
Why didn't you do any professional recordings and put it out there?
We didn't have any manager like saying, okay, you guys need to do this, you need to do that. And I think that all of us got really focused on we played out all the time, and we just were really focused on having the best live show that we could possibly have.
Right. Yeah.
It was a mistake. Obviously, now with everything we know, that was a total mistake.
Well, it is a total shift in energy. I mean, the energy that you put out to book a show, to perform a show, to promote a show, to have that relationship. It's, you know, that relationship with the fans and with the venue. That's a very different kind of energy. And I mean,
really
it's a project in and of itself. And,
it is.
You know, I've been thinking about it, you know, recently, like, there are very few professions where every single day you have to apply for that new job. You need to apply for that gig. You get the gig, you play the gig, and then you need to apply for another job. And it's a pretty exhausting cycle. It takes up a lot of energy. It can be fun. I like doing all of those parts of it, but it is a lot of energy. And then
it is.
To make a record is a very different type of project.
It also was really expensive back then.
Yeah.
It wasn't like it is today, where everybody could do it themselves. You know, it just was the beginning of that. Like people had little 4-tracks, you know, that they would make like cassette recordings, and that's what we did. You know, so we did have a cassette that we passed out, you know, or we, you know, paid whatever we asked for a certain amount of money for. But yeah, it was a much more expensive thing, and usually you were hoping that somebody would sign you,
right?
Some indie label, something like that.
Yeah.
And now when you look back at it, it's like, no, you should just do it. Take that risk, somehow get that money, you know, and just record. It's so important. Yeah.
So what happened? So you didn't make a formal studio recording, but you had these cassettes.
Yeah.
And what happened to that band? How did it end?
That band ended up breaking up. You know, we were all immature and stuff. And
you know, I just watched the movie The Commitments for the first time. I'd never seen it. I just saw it like a week ago, and I'm just picturing how that band at the end of the movie just kind of, you know, they come together, and at the end of the movie they just fall apart.
Yeah, and we just all started drifting away, and wanting to do different things and getting sick of each other. You know, the catty fights and all that. It just, you know, yeah. So that drifted away, and then I started another project. I mean, they just kept going, you know.
Yeah.
The creative process. I was in a band called Spin Diva after that, and
was that still in Chicago, or was that here in LA?
That was still in Chicago.
Okay.
And we played out a few shows, and it was super fun. And we did do some recording, again, like cassette type situation. And then I moved out to California from there. Yeah.
And eventually you made your way down to LA.
I did. I did. Yeah. And then I came to LA. There's a lot of other stuff in between.
Yeah, for sure.
You know,
a whole life,
like,
right? I find myself thinking, though, as you're telling the story, about that first coming together of that first band. You said, oh, it was me and the bass player, and you know, we were playing together, and then a guitar player, a singer, they joined. I'm kind of curious about this whole like coming together of that band, because there are not, especially from that time period, but even today, I mean, I perform primarily solo at this moment. I've had a band, but it's always been my band. Like, you know, I bring in the players, and we've performed under my name. That's a different thing than what you're talking about. This idea of like, you know, these different players, and they're all women, and they've all come together. How did that happen? You know, how did you guys meet? How did you end up saying, you know, because also being in a band, it's different than just I mean, it's more like a romantic relationship in that you are making a commitment. Yeah, you're making commitment to these people. It's different than friendship. There's you know, I mean, of course there's hopefully friendship with it, but you know, with a friend, you rarely say, so hi, I want to have a friendship with you. Would you be my friend? And, you know, then you have a friendship for 5 years or however, or a lifetime. You know, like a band coming together is, you know, a different thing than a friendship. How did that happen?
Well, I was friends with all these girls, you know, before. We weren't necessarily musicians. We were discovering, like, I was already a musician. I knew how to play guitar, but the other members really didn't know how to play. And so we were learning together. And it was just really fun. It would just began as really fun. But we were in a scene, like a music scene in Chicago. Yeah. So we knew all the musicians. We were so into music. We would go to shows every night of the week, you know. It was our life. We were devoted, fully devoted to seeing, you know, the newest music happening in Chicago, whether they were visiting from England or from New York or from home. We wanted to know what was going on. And we listened to like college radio. College radio was so great back then. So I had my 2 favorite college radio stations, and I'd be listening to that, and I'd hear something. I'd be like, what is that? And it was like, you literally like wait just to hear who was that artist. So you can go out, and then you'd go down to the local record store, or, you know, and be like, I want this. Do you have the, you know, it was like trying to find that record. And
it was a real ecosystem.
It was really, and it was some obscure band from England, you know, out of this little town, and they didn't even have it, you know. Yeah. So then you'd wait to hear it on the radio again, and then maybe like record it, you know. So yeah, there was a lot of that going on. So we were friends. We were just learning together, and then as I evolved, you know, like coming out here. And then I was in more bands playing drums. And that when that band broke up, I said that was the last time I was going to play drums in a band.
Oh, okay.
Because I was like, I'm sick of these lead singers. I'm sick of these lead singers, you know. So I'm going to just do it. And actually, you know, so I just
So you were like, I'm going to be the lead. I'm going to be the front
That's
person.
right, like you're
and I'm going to play
doing now.
guitar and sing, right?
That's right.
Okay.
And so that's actually how I met Paul.
Oh.
I used to play out all over alone. So I know what that's like. Super hard.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you don't have to worry about coming out of being in a band and worrying about every single band member and what they're going to bring with them that day. You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
So it was, that part of it was really great. So I would just, you know, book all these shows and Paul and me would play out.
Oh, okay.
And that's how
he would play guitar and you would play guitars also.
So he accompanied me and
Yeah.
he would play lap steel a lot with me because I was looking for a lap steel player. And
because we all are looking for a lap steel player. Let's just be clear. I'll say this right now.
Right. And people around town said there's two guys, and Paul plays pedals. You know, he plays lap steel. He doesn't play pedal steel. Just to clear that up. They're two different instruments.
Yeah, they definitely are.
But yeah, there's not that many, and so. I saw him play in a band and I was just like blown away, and I gave him my cassette and I'm like, yeah, I really am looking for somebody, and I was hoping, and he liked it. So we played together for 3 years before we even got romantically involved.
And this was before Icy Hawks in LA, right?
This
or
was
that band already?
This was before Icy Hawks in LA.
Okay.
That's right.
Why don't we pause the story right there?
Okay.
You have your guitar in your hand, and I want to hear some music. So I think that those are two very compatible things.
Okay.
Play us a song.
All right. The first song I'm going to sing today, this song was on the Hawks album, Live and Never Learn, that came out in 2018. And it's called Spinning. Spinning pages of your mind, spin like twine. Spinning pages of your mind, unraveling time. Spinning, spinning out of time. Spinning, spinning out of time. Spinning twine, unraveling time. Forgotten memories revealed in dreams at night. I see your face, but can't recognize in waking light. Fantastic colors in the night, return in the middle of the night. Fantastic colors, clear and bright, return in the middle of the night. Spinning, spinning out of time. Spinning, spinning out of time. Floating fossil from the unknown, lost forever. Where treasured gift that you gave to me a long time ago. Spinning ball of twine, unravel your mind. Spinning ball of twine, unravel your mind. Spinning, spinning out of time. Spinning, spinning out of time. Spinning, 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 spinning out of time. Wow, I was so nervous, I have to admit.
That is me every single week on this show.
Oh my God, my nerves are just rattled.
I know.
Anyway.
It's kind of surprising that, it's just how many times have we sat with a guitar and sung a song for someone, but yeah.
This song is it's so simple, but yet it is so hard to perform. It's
and what
one
do you
of those.
Think? Why is that?
I just think it is. It's just, I don't know what it is. It's just.
When you guys play it as the band, do you play guitar on this song or do you play drums?
And that's the other thing. I've never played this song out before.
Oh.
This was the first time. And that's why I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Because I've never played it out. So I thought, okay, this is going to give me the chance to finally work up this song to play out.
Yeah.
Even play on the internet, but
yeah.
Yeah, because it's, so that's the other thing. When you've played a song a million times out already,
yeah,
it's way easier.
Totally. Yeah. And maybe that's why I'm nervous every week, because I'm always bringing in new songs.
Of course. But with the other songs that I do with the Hawks, I play drums while I'm singing.
While you're singing?
Yeah.
Yeah. And are you singing? You guys sing a lot of harmonies in the band. Do you tend to take harmony roles?
No,
or
I don't
lead
do
roles?
harmonies.
Okay.
I don't do the harmonies.
Okay.
We talked about it at one point. There's something with their blend. I don't want to mess with that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just there's Parka, the song where I do, and obviously, we're all harmonizing on the bits together in that song. And that's that song's a group effort. We all wrote it.
Oh.
But, yeah, it's there's that Hawks magic. I don't want to step on those backing. Yeah, no. Because even though, and I've done it and it will be on a recording for something, but it has to be special and it has to be the right moment.
So tell me so you and Paul started playing together. You played together for 3 years, and those were your songs, right?
Yes.
And then where did the Hawks come into the story?
Yeah, so the Hawks would play out, and they're, in the beginning, they were I would always play on Humboldt a lot when they played out. That was the rockin', Humboldt is their rockin' thing.
Right.
And once in a while, in the beginning, I would play on that. They would come up, do Humboldt, but I was had a whole other career at that point. I was running a boutique and I was the buyer and manager, and it was full time. And I just had to really devote myself to that. It was very hard work.
So you had put aside your solo career or your duo career.
I did,
also
and I put aside my
Oh.
career to do this. And so I wasn't really doing any kind of music at that point. And so I would just sit in with that now and again, sit in on a song. And then around 2013, they were making the album Mystery Drug. And they were planning to do a European tour, like the UK and Ireland. And Sean couldn't go for reasons. And Paul's like, do you think that maybe we could, you could try, get back into drumming again? And so I started playing again, and it was.
How did you feel about that when he first proposed that? Were you like, that's not my thing anymore, I'm doing this other stuff? Or were you like, yes, I was kind of waiting for an opportunity to get back to it?
No,
How did you feel?
I was totally like scared and like I don't think I could do it. Sean is number one. Sean Norris is an amazing drummer. I love his drumming, and I was so behind. Not only was I not playing for all those years, but I also didn't play country music, and traditional is different than rock and roll,
Right.
So he said, Paul just really pushed me. He's like, come on. So
you also had, there was the other thing, like, oh yeah, you also get to tour Europe. If you say yes, you get to go to England and Ireland and wherever else. So
yeah,
there's a little bit of a carrot there, right?
That's right. So I started practicing every day, and I actually had Sean show me how to do the 2-beat country beat. And he came over, and it was so hard at first. And what's really funny, it was really hard for me at first. And I just kept going at it. And now it's my favorite beat to play. Like, I don't want to even play anything else. I love it so much that I'm just like, please do, I'm like in the back of my mind, Hawks, please write another 2-beat,
Why do you love that so much?
Oh, it's so like primal. And so you're in the song so much. You're like in it, and it's just, by the way, I love drumming. It's like you use a whole different part of your brain than you're using when you play guitar and singing. It's totally different.
Can you?
And people who are drummers and guitar players and singers, they know. Drumming
what is it? What is it?
It's fun, and it's just so much more fun. And you're like in the song, but you're like making.
You're kind of dancing at the same time.
Exactly.
So does it hit you in that dancer place that you used to access?
And you're holding the band together. You're the secret glue that holds everybody together. And it's just, it's just so much fun. And you reach a place where you just can let go. Whereas singing, you can, but it's not the same. It's just not the same. You have to, if you let go, you're going to lose that next line. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to always be kind of present. Drumming, you don't. In fact, it's almost better if you're not present.
Like you just go into sort of a trance. Like
you do.
You're like a whirling dervish.
You really are. You kind of lose yourself in when you play the drums. Yeah. It's almost like, it's like meditation, but you're present at the same time, so you know where you are in the song. But it's not like playing guitar and singing, because you have to be really conscious.
Interesting. You know, something I've been thinking about a lot about playing music lately is that is not so much about the music part of it, but the other things. Like, for example, the breath that it takes to sing, and how when you're singing it's a long exhale, however long that phrase is, and how that exhale, that sustained exhale, especially for a longer phrase, is like when you're in meditation and you're doing a long exhale, and how the heartbeat slows down, the nervous system calms down. And you're making me also think about, with drumming versus another kind of instrument, no matter what instrument we play, maybe this, I'm not sure if this applies to electric instruments, but I play acoustic guitar and I'm a woodwind player. So it's like you feel the vibrations of the sound waves and the tension of the sound in you. But with drumming, I imagine that vibration is a different thing. You're getting it like the reverberation of the stick hitting the snare, or like that rebound that you're getting. You're feeling that vibration in more parts of you. I wonder if that's something with what you're talking about right here.
Definitely. And I think there's also something with the, like, hitting the skin and the way it bounces in your with your wrist, and just like the whole feeling in your body, going together with, and then your feet, on the hi-hat and on the bass drum doing something else. It's just very, yeah, it's very much like meditative in a weird way. Yeah, I would say so. And feeling vibrations and all that. Yeah. Unfortunately, you don't want in a recording situation, you don't want it ringing too much, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, you're making me want to play drums.
Yeah. It's pretty great.
Wow. I took a class one time for like a semester. It was a percussion for non-percussionists class, and it was really fun, but that's the only time in my life that I ever spent time playing the drums, every week at this class, just playing, whatever conga, triangle, whatever other percussion instruments we brought in every week. It was great.
What's really funny is me and Paul both studied at the same time. We didn't know African percussion.
Oh.
With the same person.
Oh, wow.
At different times, but he traveled around or whatever. Yeah. So, he was from Ghana, and he was he played, I forget what it's called. It's been so many years, but yeah, he studied from the same guy, and in Chicago, he taught they came around and did some classes. So I took that.
You took that in Chicago, and Paul took that here in California?
Yeah.
That's funny.
In the same year.
How cool is that?
Yeah. We both have a lot of similarities in our artistic bend, and that's one of them. Like, we both love African rhythm, although that doesn't really show. Actually, one Hawk song it shows, but yeah.
Are you still doing your solo stuff, or is the Hawks your primary musical outlet right now?
The Hawks are my primary musical outlet. I'm not really doing my solo thing. I keep talking about it, but I don't do it. But I am planning. I have started to record some songs, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, Victoria, I have to ask you, the other part of the show, obviously, is the tomes part. And you're sitting in front of this beautiful bookcase full of books. I love that Paul and I talked last week about how you two are both just book lovers. Are you similar book lovers, or do you like a different type of book from Paul?
We're different.
What are you into? Okay.
What
do you like?
I don't read like Paul. He is like a book maniac, and I am not a book maniac. It's actually hard to get me hooked on a book, but when I do, I love it, and I will read it, and really treasure it. So, but the book that I'm going to read from today, Paul loved as well, and this book is like one of my actually favorite books, and that's why I brought it out. Like, I wasn't reading it, I was already done. Yeah. But I'm like, the book that I'm reading right now, I don't want to, it's stupid to talk. It's not like that interesting, really.
Let's talk about the interesting one then. What is it?
So this is Diana Beresford Kroger. I don't know if you've heard of her. She wrote To Speak for the Trees. And she is so fascinating. I cannot stress. She was basically born in England in 1944, and her father was an Anglo-Irish aristocrat, and her mother was an O'Donoghue, which is one of the stronghold families in Ireland, and they tragically both died within the same year. This is true. This is a true story, nonfiction. She's a real person. So They both died within the same year, and she was living in, oh, let me say this. Her parents separated first before that. And her father lived in England, and her mother went back to Ireland. Okay. And being married to who she was married to was very frowned upon because he was Anglo-Irish. So,
And so this is about the author, right? Or is this in the book also?
This is in the book, and
Okay.
this is about the author. This is her
Okay.
story, and she had a
Okay.
really hard time writing this because it was so painful for her.
Is this
Because
a book about her life? Is this a
yeah,
memoir?
so
Okay.
it's about, that's the thing about this book. It's about three things. It's about her life. It's about her. She becomes a botanist and a biochemist. So it's about that, and it's about her activism. She became a, climate change activist. So it's about all three at once, and so it's just really fascinating. But her life is just so fascinating because, and she becomes, all her family in Ireland want her to learn all of the Gaelic traditional ways of life that are now, were leaving Ireland because the young people really didn't want to learn it. So they wanted her to pass it on to the world, all this knowledge. And so what happened is when her mother and her father died in the same year, there was a possibility that she might have been sent to, in Ireland they had these Magdalena, like, they're basically places where they send orphans or women who have children, who get pregnant and they're not married, and they're like laundry places, but they're really enslavement.
Right.
They're horrible. And so there was a possibility, there was always this threat when she was a little girl, and we're talking like she lost her parents at 13. There was always this threat that she was going to be taken away to one of those laundry places. So she lived with that kind of threat. And the courts decided that her mother's brother was going to take her. So she lived in Cork during the school year. And then in the summer, this is when she would go home to the family farm. So they had a family farm in Lachines, which is like in the border of Killarney and Cork. And she would go there, and they told her, you are going to learn the brethren of Irish and Gaelic. We're going to pass it down to you. And you're going to absorb all this. And they told her this as a 13-year-old. And you're going to learn all this, and you're going to pass it on to this knowledge. And their knowledge is insane. Like the things that they taught her about plants, diversity, they know everything about like the different kinds of herbs and what cures, and their whole lifestyle and the language too. So that's what this book is about.
Wow.
I hope I make sense. I'm not really.
I'm intrigued.
It's so intrigued.
Read us something.
Okay. So,
was that the book that you were going to share the passage
from?
Yeah. Okay, good.
So what I was going to read to you first, like her first, when she first arrives at her Aunt Nellie's. This is where she goes in the summer to the family farm. But I'm going to skip it and go to this other part because I just feel like this part is it just shows you about her mind and how brilliant she is. And tell me if I'm reading too long, because this is like okay, here we go. Our teacher set her things down on her desk and moved to the head of the classroom. She smelled the gas, her face scrunching in displeasure, but close not to mention it before getting down to business. instructing us to open our books and read the first chapter in silence. There was groans and sniggers as Sister Mercedes took her seat, adjusted her wimple, and proceeded to shuffle papers about with obvious purpose. I delicately opened the cover, pausing briefly to enjoy the soft crackle of it becoming my textbook, and then left the rest of the classroom melt away as I trained all my attention on the words in front of me. I began at the copyright page, noting the name of the publishing house before moving on to the assigned chapter, which was on the properties of hydrogen. The pages were crisp, full color, illustrating sang out from them. Hydrogen, I learned, had a singular valence electron of 1 and an atomic number of 1, atomic weight of 1.0079. Its chemical code was the letter H. Everything about this first element made such sense to me. The sensation was similar to the one you have when you're reading a novel and see a feeling perfectly described, and you only realize you have felt yourself after encountering the description. Ah, yes, of course, that's it. Because I was so excited, I read as fast as I could. The chapter was about 10 pages long. When I came to the end, I put up my hand and coughed for the teacher's attention. Go on, she ordered. Do the next chapter. Oxygen, atomic number 8, atomic weight of 15.994, a lot heavier than hydrogen, symbolized by the letter O. I was fascinated. The textbook to me was more engrossing than any comic. The gas leaking from its Bunsen burner could fill the lab, spark and blast Sister Mercedes. Wimple and rosary beads singed clear across the road and through the roof of her convent, and my eyes would have remained glued to the page. I reached the end of the chapter on oxygen and again raised my hand, though I coughed more softly this time. The nun looked up from her papers. When she caught sight of me, a flash of indignation lit her face. No, she shouted, you young lady are playing games. I looked over one shoulder and then the other to make sure that she was addressing me. All of us were so shocked that there was no sniggering or whispering. The room was dead silent. Sister Mercedes stood up slowly and dangerously. She closed her portfolio with great deliberation. Then she closed her eyes and fingered her beads, pausing on the large crucifix. She pressed her body of Christ with one finger, as if it were a button capable of triggering the correct response. She opened her eyes. Go on, she ordered, her voice dripping sarcasm. Recite what you read. We have all day. As I felt the eyes of the room shift from her back onto me, all the joy I felt evaporated. I merely done what she asked. Yet I could tell that I had somehow dug myself a deep hole. I'm sorry, Sister Mercedes, I began, but she silenced me with a raised hand. Stand up, Miss Beresford, she said, her voice still acidic, and show us what you've learned. With no idea what else to do, I began at the copyright page. I quoted from memory the name of the press. I added the date of publication for good measure, and then I started in on the hydrogen. I tried to infuse my hands with the fervor of a prayer, hoping that would sway her. I recited page after page, including the page numbers. The rest of the room stayed silent. The nun's face was as irritable mask. Later, I would learn that I have a photographic memory for equations and near photographic memory for everything else. I would also learn that not everyone's mind works the way mine does. In that moment, though, I knew only that I'd been asked to recite what I have read. I started to relax a little as I moved into the chapter on oxygen, enough at least that I could begin take pleasure in the disparity between the two atomic weights. I was partway down the left-hand column on page 15 when the sister again held up a hand to silence me. I am almost sure that she swore under her breath before gathering her beads in the hand and walking out of the room. Moments later, I saw her out of the window, crossing the gravel courtyard and entering the convent. What had I done? I was terrified. None of my classmates spoke or moved. There was a charge in the air, though I couldn't tell whether it was them sharing in my fear or anticipating an entertaining scene. For my part, I'm sure I'd gotten the whole lot of us in trouble. I would be expelled and thrown into Sunday's well. That's the laundry. Regardless of the judge's concerns about reprisals for the Beresfords and all because of hydrogen and oxygen. I was still lost in thoughts when a girl scouted at the window and announced in a loud whisper that Sister Mercedes was returning across the courtyard with Bona was with her. Sister Bonaventure was the headmaster at St. Aloysius. I was doomed. The nuns whooshed into the lab and proceeded in front of the room, their beads banging against the tables in their haste. I was told to stand up. My knees almost buckled under me, but I made it. Do it again, Sister Mercedes told me. 2 chapters from memory. Once more, I start with the title. My hand lay on the closed book in front of me, the contact of reassuring anchor, maybe the only thing that kept me from fainting or floating away. Around page 13, Bona told me to stop. I did, but remained standing just in case I was asked to repeat. Bona turned to Sister Mercedes, and the two shared a look I couldn't decipher. Then she turned her back to me. Sit down, she said. I did, and she left the chemistry lab without a word. Sister Mercedes stepped back behind her desk, settled to her papers after she directed us to all resume reading. Nobody said anything to me about the incident, neither my classmates nor the teacher. A week later, in the middle of Sister Mercedes' class, I was asked to go down to Bona's office. Waiting for me there, alongside the headmistress, was a man she introduced as Mr. Holland, a professor from the University College Cork. Miss Beresford, Bona said, Mr. Holland here will be instructing you in mathematics for the foreseeable future. I can chuckle now thinking back on my reaction, but in the moment I was ashamed.
Yeah, that's so interesting, that last line that you just read. In the moment I was ashamed. I was thinking as you were reading that that shame. I mean, that was such a delightful scene, so well written, and we could really see ourselves right there, or see her, that
Well, her
classmate
mother,
of ours,
I have to
right?
tell you, her mother, when she was alive, told her, she made a scene earlier in her life. Her brilliance, same thing in class. Her mother said, I don't want you drawing any attention to yourself. You're a woman.
Yeah, yeah,
You won't be getting a good, man to marry if you draw a lot of attention to yourself with
yeah,
education.
yeah. Stay in line.
Stay in
Don't
line.
don't don't step out of line,
So
and because
for
that
her,
attention will not be beneficial for you.
this was so difficult
Right.
for her to have any kind of attention in her life. And believe me, she drew a lot of attention as she got older. But to have any kind of attention was really for her a negative thing. So yeah, and the whole thing with, Kath, whatever. So, but yes, like you're reading that and learning about that she has this photo. She doesn't have any clue that she has a photographic memory.
Well, the other thing I really liked about that scene was the almost like the boring details of the atomic weight of hydrogen and oxygen, right? But as as musicians, guitar, songwriter, drums, whatever it is, we get so nerdy about the things that we're passionate about, and everybody has it, like that thing that, or maybe not everybody, but I hope everybody has it, that thing that they just are so fascinated by, that's completely nerdy, when we're really interested in the nitty-gritty of it, and we want to share that thing. It just makes perfect sense to us, and we want to share that with someone else, and we speak it aloud, like, oh, the 3 6 2 5 1 change in the song, or the triplets against the four, whatever it is, and someone who's not interested in that, it's just like, the atomic weight of oxygen and hydrogen.
I
So
actually find it really interesting myself, but
yeah, I did too.
Yeah, but for her though, it's so interesting.
And for her, that was like the bullseye of
oh
her
my
interest,
God,
right?
Yeah. So it was like opened a part of her that she never had discovered before. And it just got deeper and deeper in her life. Like she was just so fascinated by all that, and what the meaning was behind it, and what between going to Lachines and in Cork, what she learned is she put them together. So everything that she was taught from the people, her aunt in the country, and all her scientific research, she spent her life, especially in her school part of her life, she ended up going to the University of Cork and studying botany and biochemistry. And what she did is everything that her elders taught her about the Gaelic life and about the herbs, the healing, she actually studied to see if there was anything in it.
Yeah.
Like she even doubted him. She was like, there's no way any of all this is just myths and fairy tales. Yeah. And then she put it under the microscope. Yeah. Every single one of them was something that did something, that her aunt said did something.
Right.
It's so, and that's what I find super fascinating. Yeah. That she did that.
Yeah. That's very interesting when you take this these traditions that are passed down, or the wisdom of the elders, the ancient philosophies, whatever it is, and then you put it into a modern scientific study.
Right.
It's to assess, and so I laugh so often. There's an article in the paper about the benefits of meditation or the benefits of yoga, both of which I teach and practice. And, it's like, do we need the scientists to do a lab study to prove the benefits of them? Maybe we do. I mean, maybe for some people they need to have, even the modern science backs up the ancient wisdom. But there was the ancient wisdom, there was a reason they did it. Yeah. Well, so interesting.
It is. And so now that you're mentioning this, since you're mentioning that, I think this is a good place to start on, if I could read another one.
Yeah, short one.
Is my reading really bad?
No. I'm enjoying it. Keep this one short, so we'll bring in a little bit of this and a little bit of songs, and then we'll close it up.
Let me make sure this is the one. There's a reason why I want to put there is, they also have meditation too. That was another thing. Like they have all this breathing practice that
every wisdom tradition does, and that's one of the things that I find so fascinating, is that all of the major religions, the major and minor wisdom traditions, that have an element that honors silence.
Yeah.
Right? Yes. And that's, across the globe. You can go all the way around the world, and these traditions that say, let's sit in silence for a little while.
Right. And they even had something like, because she was in trauma from her parents both dying, her aunt did this thing with her where she would want her to, whenever she didn't feel good, have a memory of something that she loved. Think of that memory. And so she trained her to like heal herself, through
Yeah.
breathing and having a memory, having these memories
Yeah.
is a positive thing. Um, but here's one I think that you're gonna like, and I think everyone else is gonna like too. And I think this one, yeah, this one's shorter. Okay. There was always a feeling of recognition in my bones when I first encountered these ruins. And I want to say is the reason why I'm picking this is now it's like the other part of her life. Okay. She's in Lachines and she's in the countryside. It was something like the sensation you get when your spouse, sibling, or parent enters a room before you actually laid eyes on them. The hint of familiarity in the air before you consciously register their presence. Sometimes the feeling was reassuring, and other times it was ever so slightly unsettling. The spookiness of unknown and invisible power humming in the air. On the sacred island at Gogain Barra, about 5 miles north of Lachines, the wall of prayers willed into existence by the monks who once lived in Saint Finbar's oratory can make your hair arms stand up. When I'm there, I constantly feel as though someone or something is standing right behind me, not necessarily with malicious intentions, because its ancient origin was of divinity, prayer, and personal sacrifice. From my kitchen window of the farmhouse, I can see an altar to which I haven't yet been introduced. Late one morning, in the soft stretch of time between the first round of chores and the start of dinner preparations, Nellie was combing her beautiful silver hair when all of a sudden, as though we were in mid conversation, she began talking to me. For the woman of Ireland, back before Christianity laid its mantle over our lives, Valentine was a special day, she began, and here it is still. Valentine, she told me, was a celebration for women on the first day of May. That spring morning, the women of the valley would rise before dawn, gather in the field in front of the altar. She gestured out the window. You would collect dew from the clover on the ground, and with it perform a ritual that was, she said, the secret to their beauty. Once the sun appeared, they would look to the altar itself. From my seat, I could see the altar had a long channel carved down its center. As the sun rises on the first day of the month of May, it centers its rays directly down that cut stone channel, Nellie said. One of the darkness of the night sky, a single shaft of light reaches for the altar. As it touches the stone, it looks as if the altar bursts into flames. It is a symbol of all of the fires that have helped us in our passage through life's lonely walk. In the ancient past, Beltane was the womb of the Celtic world. Bel means mouth and time, fire. On the day people celebrated all that was coming into life through the fire of the sun, the female principle and all womanhood was celebrated on the special day. The altar that was in full view from the window at every breakfast I enjoyed in Lachines was going to take on the finer focal point for me. I don't know if letters were exchanged between Uncle Pat and Nellie. I have my suspicions that a letter also made its way to Bona. In many cases, I found myself allowed to leave school and appear in Lachines for the morning of May 1st. The farmhouse was dark and creeping with shadows, the silence explosive with expectation. I was awake before I felt Nellie's hand on my arm. Wake up, Giddy. The day is here. Then she led me out into the pastures barefoot, so she and I could feel the breathing of the ground underneath us. I remember the way the cold dew squished between my toes as we walked. Shamrock, Trifolium dobium, is a flowering clover that creeps among the grasses in pasture lands all over Ireland. It has been used as a fallow crop by Irish farmers since before the construction of Rome, and its small yellow flowers are a favorite of the honeybee. Just after the fire lands in the mouth of the altar, Nellie had told me, the shamrocks begin to break out of their winter dormancy and push out their first green fingers of spring. In front of the altar, we knelt in the grass to wait for the sun, all other women of the valley close around us. As we waited in silence, the group of us practiced a controlled breathing meditation. With a gentle hand on my shoulders to get my attention, Nellie showed me the deep, slow rhythm of the breaths. The first light of morning was lit more than a pinprick over the lip of the altar's channel, but within moments the whole stone had come alive with light. It seemed to vibrate with energy. As the light intensified, I closed my eyes and waited for the feel of its warmth on my cheeks. After a few minutes, Nellie again touched my shoulder. I opened my eyes and saw that all around me women were bending to wipe the morning dew from the fresh leaves of the shamrock. Well, now, Diana, Nellie said, it's a fact that beauty gets noticed in this world, so let's not dawdle. Wetting her hands on a plant, she showed me the pattern she used to apply the dew. She began running her fingers in side swipes across her fine, high forehead just under the hairline, then moved down over the eyelids, gently patting dew into the corners of her eye. Next, she worked her cheeks in a circular motion. Then it was on her chin. She managed in upstrokes and finally her neck, which received 15 long strokes for her collarbone all the way up to her jawline. I mimicked her movements, and then, faces wet, we walked smiling our way back to the farmhouse. We left the dew to air dry, and for the rest of the day my skin had a pleasant tight feeling, as though it were being delicately pulled. The ritual, Nellie insisted, was what gave the women of Lachine their beautiful complexions. Later in life, I would confirm that trifolium dubium does contain a biochemical for beauty. The upper area of shamrock leaves exudes a pair of related flavonoids called hesperium and hesperine, mostly commonly found in citrus fruits. The morning dew holds these beneficial chemicals in solution, and when applied to the face, they encourage blood flow while gently tightening the skin's surface. Nature's anti-aging cream, so to speak. It improves circulation and has other advantages as well. By increasing oxygenation to the eye, improves eyelight, particularly among people suffering from diabetes. And collective controlled breathing is a form of meditation which has been shown to decrease levels of stress and hormone cortisol. At the time, though, I didn't need to fully understand Bellatine to derive great happiness from it. The time with Nellie, the quiet communion with other women, the relaxation of the wait, the fresh feeling of dew on my face, and the splendor of watching the sunrise set in the hills, and the altar of flame, all this was enough. The day has been fixed in my mind ever since as a source of joy and female companionship. Sorry, that's a lesson
Oh,
poem. But
yeah, I love
isn't that
that though.
amazing?
Yeah, very
So,
cool. Yeah,
yeah,
interesting.
she is, I mean, and there's like pages of that. And then she goes on to be, a defender of trees. She's really knowledgeable about, she believes that we can end our global problem with the environment by every human being planting 2 trees that is native to where we live. And she's done all this activism. There's so much on her books and
When was
whatnot.
that book? When was that book published?
This book was published, and I wrote it down somewhere.
Speaking of the copyright line.
Yeah, and I had a whole page where I put that down. I think it was 2019.
Oh, okay. So pretty.
But she's
pretty
written
recently.
other books. She's made a documentary about trees and stuff. She's so knowledgeable. It's crazy, And she went on to Yeah, 2019.
Okay.
She went on to do lots of things. Like one of her teachers was the invented X-rays at Cork, one of her professors, and nobody could understand anything he said except for her. They became good friends, and then while she was going to
Oh,
Cork,
because he spoke in Gaelic? Is that why?
no, because
Or
he was a scientist. Like we were
oh,
talking,
he
thinking
was
he was
funny.
in a lot of those professors. People can't understand what they're saying.
I see what
Even
you're saying.
today, like you go to a
Couldn't communicate
lecture.
to the lay person, right?
Yeah, so she could understand everything he
Right.
said, and
And then translate it for
and
the
they
rest.
became friends. So she started telling everybody would come up to her in the class, like, "Do you know what he just said?"
Yeah.
And they're like, she's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." She's like, "Can you explain it to me?" So she ended up
Yeah.
having a class at the end of his class to explain to the rest of the class what he was saying.
Right.
And so she's just, and stuff like that. And then she later had all these ideas about the seaweed that grows in Ireland and its benefits. And this one scientist in Japan tested it, and she was right. And then just the trees. There's a whole other part of this book that is about trees and
Very
the
cool.
knowledge of trees. And the last thing I'll say about it is the Gaelic language, the alphabet. She has it in the back of this book. And the Gaelic, alphabet goes back way before, Christ or any of that. And every single letter is a tree. And yes, every single letter of the Gaelic alphabet is it's a letter
A symbolic representation of a particular tree.
Exactly.
Oh.
And so there's a language called Ogam, and that is like the ancient language of, in Ireland. It was the first form in the world. Well, maybe not in the world, but it was the first form in Europe and in the islands that, of written language. And that's what I'm talking about. The language was that alphabet they're all trees. And it's because Ireland used to be woodland. And so that's another thing, when she was growing up, she couldn't understand why there were no trees in Ireland. She was like, why are there no trees here? She would see a beautiful tree and she always had a connection with trees. But why is there no trees? And she learned, obviously the English, when they made that, when they took over Ireland, they stole and took down all the trees to build their boats, their warships.
That's right.
Anyways, so it just,
wow.
Yeah. So it's a fascinating book, and she goes on to explain. It becomes all about trees. Then after the chapter about her life, it goes on to explain why the science and why we need to grow more trees.
Yeah. Well, Victoria, speaking of trees,
Sorry.
I think that a book that you probably would love in that case, and I think Paul also would. Rob and I were talking about it a couple of weeks ago. Rob Waller from your band, I See Hawks in L.A.
Yeah.
The book is Overstory by Richard Powers, and Rob and I both had conflicting feelings about the book, but
Okay.
I think that the parts that Rob and I both loved the most were in the first section of the book where I think it's 6 chapters, and each chapter talks about a different tree.
Cool.
North American tree.
Oh.
My favorite chapter was the chestnut tree, but anyway, so Overstory by Richard Powers, and the book that I brought in last week is another book by Richard Powers called Bewilderment. I finished this book. I shared a chapter or a section of it anyway last week with Paul, and I finished it in the meantime, but I really want to talk to someone about this book, Bewilderment, because
Please.
I want to find someone who has read this book, who has read Italo Calvino's book, Invisible Cities, and who has also read Alan Lightman's book, Einstein's Dreams. I am dying to talk to someone who has read all 3 of these and is also familiar with Flowers for Algernon. And so the excerpt that I read from the Richard Powers Bewilderment novel last week was the description of a planet. The father in this book, the protagonist, is he's an astrobiologist. He studies outer space, and he's in search of other planets with life forms. His wife, who is dead by the time the book starts, she was also an environmental activist. And so she was, rooted on the earth, and he was rooted in the sky, and they had a son, and the son is somewhere on the spectrum of Asperger's, some kind of difficulty with his emotional management and sensory management, but also a very delightful, creative, and intelligent young boy. He's 9 years old, and when the book starts, the mother has recently died she was in a car accident. And so the book has a lot of grief in it and a lot of wonder. The father and the son are trying to navigate their human lives here on Earth, and social justice, environmental justice. The son is trying to follow in his mother's footsteps. He misses her. He's very inspired by her. And for solace at night, his father tells him about planets, a particular planet that the father, it's all speculation, perhaps this type of planet exists, and he describes this particular type of planet. Now, in those descriptions, it really reminded me a lot of Italo Calvino's Invisible Cities, and in this book, Calvino describes also these imagined different cities. And Einstein's Dreams by Alan Lightman is a book where the author is imagining what were the dreams that Einstein had as he was developing his theory of relativity. So all three of these books have these short, very, very short chapters that describe like kind of the subjunctive tense, like something that might have happened, but completely imagined. And so I just wanted to share a city from Italo Calvino's Invisible Cities.
Okay.
And this is a book in translation. The translator is William Weaver. He translated it from the Italian. And this book was originally published in 1972. And so this particular city, just half a page long. And it goes like this. This is a city about memory. Leaving there, proceeding for 3 days toward the east, you reach Diomira, a city with 60 silver domes, bronze statues of all the gods, streets paved with lead, a crystal theater, a golden cock that crows each morning on a tower. All these beauties will already be familiar to the visitor, who has seen them also in other cities. But the special quality of this city for the man who arrives there on a September evening, when the days are growing shorter and the multicolored lamps are lighted all at once at the doors of the food stalls, and from a terrace a woman's voice cries, "Oh!" is that he feels envy toward those who now believe they have once before lived an evening identical to this, and who think they were happy that time. So that's the entirety of the chapter, and the special quality of this particular city is that it causes the man to feel envy for people who remember the past as happy. And then the very next page, the next city, also one of the memory cities, because there are cities of desire, there are cities with eyes, there are cities, thin cities, his different cities in desire. So this is another one for cities in memory. When a man rides a long way through wild regions, he feels the desire for a city. Finally, he comes to Isidora, a city where the buildings have spiral staircases encrusted with spiral seashells, where perfect telescopes and violins are made, where the foreigner, hesitating between two women, always encounters a third, where cockfights degenerate into bloody brawls among the betters. He was thinking of all these things when he desired a city. Isidora, therefore, is the city of his dreams, with one difference. The dreamed of city contained him as a young man. He arrives at Isidora in his old age. In the square, there's a wall where the old men sit and watch the young go by. He is seated in a row with them. Desires are already memories. So.
It sounds like Spain. I don't know why.
Like
the
Spain.
cockfights. I don't know.
Oh, true. So I just was thinking a lot about this book, Invisible Cities by Calvino, as I was reading Bewilderment by Richard Powers, and I am dying to just talk to another person. Anybody listening out there, reach out to me if you have read all 3 of these books, and actually all 4, including Flowers for Algernon. I'm such a nerd about books.
Well, what's interesting, the first song that I sang today is about dreams. Because there was a period when I was having these dreams and I was seeing, like, I would be like trying to find something that I lost, that I haven't seen in years. Like, sometimes, especially as you get older, you'll wake up someday and you're like, oh my God, what happened to that, thing? What happened to that, whatever it was? And so I would go to sleep and these answers would come in my dreams. I would wake up in the morning. Oh, it's there. And it would start, and it started happening to me. It happens to me actually now more often.
Wow.
Like if something's missing and then this other thing I had too, I don't get it so much anymore. I had this whole period in my dreams where I would close my eyes. I was not on any drugs. And I would see a kaleidoscope of colors when I closed my eyes. I'm like, what is with this? Am I going insane? Yeah. But it was really it was wonderful. I'm like, I hope I see it again. Or just like, I would see cartoons. I'm like, what are these cartoons? Are these cartoons I saw when I was a little girl? And they're just coming to me now, like in that time, like right before you go to, fall asleep, deep sleep, there's like stuff there. And I just realized your mind is just like pages of time, just unraveling and just, your brain is doing stuff. Yeah. And revealing itself to you, and you don't really even know it, and it's so fascinating.
Yeah, just all the things just firing, and the brain just trying to make connections that maybe our conscious brain couldn't have connected.
Exactly. Yeah. And so this book by Einstein, it's not by Einstein.
It's not by Einstein. Yeah,
so
it's fiction. Yeah, it's fiction.
But it must have some really interesting dreams in there.
It is very interesting. And it's a very slim, tiny, pocket-sized book. But I've read it a few times. It's a very interesting concept and a delightful read. I recommend.
Cool. When was
I
that
recommend
written?
all of these. Einstein's Dreams. I want to say it came out in the 90s. Did it come out that long ago? 1993.
His life is so fascinating.
I might have stolen this book from someone because it's inscribed. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry, Andy. I think I stole your book.
It happens.
So Victoria, I think that it's time for you to play a song, for me to play a song, and for us to take us out. So
okay.
Will you play another song for us, and then
we'll
just end the time with music?
Yes. Okay, this song is called Kensington Market. And it's actually on the latest Hawks record. Let me just make sure I'm... which is... which is On Our Way. And it was recorded in 2021. Okay, let me get comfy here. I'm getting more relaxed now. Now the show's over.
That's me every week.
I bet. Where did you go? Far from home, to the city of London, and everywhere people stare at your frantic psycho clothes. Gonna go to Kensington Market, get lost in the winding passages, check out all the crazy people and take a look around. Flyers on the ground. Girls with yellow golden hair, hand-dyed gowns with silkscreen tears, walking up from the underground. All of the moths are hanging around. Sounds of dove are in the air. It's time to go on a plane back home and leave the city of tea and scones. And everywhere people stare at your blue-black plaited hair. Gonna go to Kensington Market, get lost in the winding passages, check out all the crazy people and take a look around. Flyers on the ground. Girls with yellow golden hair, hand-dyed gowns with silkscreen tears, walking up from the underground. All of the moths are hanging around. Sounds of dove are in the air.
Thank you. Victoria,
Sure.
did you say that was one of the Hawk songs that you wrote, or did you co-write it, or where is that
I wrote
in
it.
relationship? Okay.
Yeah, I wrote
Did you
it.
write it by yourself, or did you write it as a co-write with Paul or the other members?
No, I wrote it on my own.
Is that the way that you guys often work? You write songs separately and then bring them to the band, or is there a lot of co-writing that happens?
Mostly the writing of the Hawks is Rob and Paul.
Mm.
And they, they have their method of doing that,
Yeah.
which usually is someone brings something to the table and then it turns into a totally different thing.
Right, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Paul played a song last night. Or last week, and said that, hey Rob, I changed some of the some of the
Yeah.
words here.
Yeah, and they always do that back
They
and
bounce
forth.
it back and forth.
And I love it. I mean, I feel so lucky to be part of that band. I love their songs so much. But yeah.
And nice people too.
Oh,
I'm finding with getting to know you guys each of these weeks.
yeah, and thank you. And also you'll meet, so when is
Paul,
the other
Paul is not next week, but the week after that.
And it's a whole other thing with him.
Okay.
And you're going to have so much fun with him.
That's awesome.
I guarantee
I
it.
can't wait.
Yeah.
So this is a newer song of mine, pretty new. And I was going to play it last week, and then, just intuitively ended up going in another direction and playing a very brand spanking new song last week. This is not as brand spanking new as that one was, but still pretty new. And I was thinking back to when my first husband and I split up, and after that separation, I moved into my own apartment. It was the first time I was living without anybody else, just me and the cat, and it was such an interesting time. And I was just thinking about that quietness of that time, and then I started the first draft of the song before the pandemic, and then put it aside, and then pulled it back out a couple of weeks ago, and was working on it, and it just had a different feeling playing it at this point. The song is called By Yourself.
Okay.
So here we go. When you blink your eyes at the yellow stripe of sunrise through the curtain, when you stretch your limbs and an X across the bed, when you rise without alarm clocks ringing, catch yourself in the kitchen singing, put daffodils and water on the shelf. Fine by yourself. When you dust the bike and pump the tires, throw an apple in your bag. When you pedal down some street you never knew. When you notice how the season's turning, notice that your heart's not yearning. In fact, you're feeling rather well. You're doing fine by yourself. Funny how you thought the world would end. It's strange to find instead that when the day is done and you're back at home with a jelly jar of wine, and you're curled up on the sofa with a book, you realize that for all your fears there's a tenderness you're finding here. And on the flip side of farewell, thought you'd never live to tell. You're doing fine by yourself. Oh. Thank you.
Nice.
Oh, Victoria, thank you so much for being with me this afternoon, for sharing your story.
Thanks so
and
much for
also
having me.
the story that you love. Yeah. It's been really nice talking with you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Before I let you go, is there anything in particular that you would like, how can people be good supporters of you, your music? I See Hawks in LA. What would be, a great way for them to support you?
Sure. I think the best way would be, on the website, purchase our music, you
There
know,
you go. Yeah.
buy t-shirts, do whatever you can to support us, especially right now. It's super hard because we're not playing out that much. We do have some shows coming that are outdoor, which is nice. But they're not for a while. So
Yeah.
yeah.
How can people find out about those shows?
On the website,
Okay.
iseehawksinla.com. Yeah.
I see
Yeah.
hawksinla.com. Are you playing around Los Angeles or are you guys going on tour?
Yeah, we're playing in Los Angeles. We're playing there's a I don't know what it's called, but there's a South Pasadena like little festival going on, and we're going to
Cool.
be playing that. And then there's some kind of art festival we're playing too, and I'm not sure about that either. But the website is the best place to
Okay.
find all that information out. And
Great.
and about me, like stuff like that too with me. I think that's the best way. Is if anything's happening, they'll say something on the website.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Good.
Well, thanks so much for having me. It's super fun.
Yeah, thank you for being here. You stay there. I'll see you again backstage, but
Okay.
I'll just end the show like this. Hi everybody. Thank you so much for watching, for listening. Thank you so much for your support. The best way to support this show and the guests that I have on this show, like Victoria said, buying merch, going to the website, finding out when the shows are, etc. I would also say, liking the pages for the bands, for the guests that I have on the show, and my Arielle Silver music page on Facebook, Instagram, subscribing on YouTube to the YouTube channel. For me, it's youtube.com/ariellesilver. If you would like to be a little more something or other, je ne sais quoi, if you would like to throw something in the tip jar, please do. It's at you can find that at linktr.ee/ariellesilver or on my website. And if you want to support the show, be a sustaining member, please become a member of my Patreon. That would be wonderful. It starts just at less than a cup of coffee a month, $3 a month, and you just become a sustaining member, and that's very helpful. Whether or not you are able to become a member or do any of those things, you can certainly hit like or subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to, and that would be a great help. And also just tune in next week. Next week we have Steve Key. He is a wonderful songwriter. He has lived on the East Coast in Nashville and now is based in the Central Coast of California. And he actually came to my shed and we had an in-person Tomes and Tunes. That is the only episode up to this point that has actually been in person, and we sat side by side in the shed and had a conversation, which was really fun. So catch that next week, and then the next week after that we get back to I See Hawks in LA with our final member, Paul Marshall, and I hope to see you there. Until we meet again, take good care and be safe, be happy.